Tell people that you're worried. Tell people that you're scared. Tell people you're excited. Tell people that you are blank, because
what is it about yourself right now that you're happy with?
Made me frustrated, made me angry, made me upset, and for no reason. Now it's almost like,
what advice would you give your younger self?
It doesn't matter as much as you think it does. When one of us wins, we all win.
This is Elemental Conversations, where leadership isn't just talked about, it's tested. I'm Tyler, your host, helping you lead with your values, push through adversity, roll with change, and make bold decisions. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, and if you're ready to challenge the status quo, then get ready to let the alchemy of education ignite your passion for learning.
Fire, earth, wind, water. This is the Elemental Educator, and now your host, Tyler Como.
What advice would you give your younger self?
It doesn't matter as much as you think it does.
Why do you say that?
I overthought everything as a kid, everything. And, there was a lot of decisions that I made that maybe could have been better. There was a lot of things I didn't do. And also, I just didn't enjoy myself as much as I should, because I was in my own head about absolutely everything. And looking back now at, let's just say, my 15, 16-year-old self, I literally would tell this kid, hey man, it doesn't matter as much as you think it does.
What do you think your 15, 16-year-old self would say to you if they saw you now?
I don't know. They'd probably find a reason to be frustrated by me. Then they'd find out I was into Dragon Ball, and we'd probably talk about video games. And then they'd find a point of relation to me. And I think they'd really dig that. Because I try to find relation, things that I can relate to with students, and, the emerging youth, because they are of a totally different mindset.
The first question you said that you were frustrated and you became somebody that you're happy with. What is it about yourself right now that you're happy with?
I think that I see the world a little bit more clearly, and I don't worry about as much of the things that I used to worry about, because I allow myself to feel the feelings. I allow myself to process the things that are happening. I allow myself to reflect on the things that are happening. And, having gone through so many experiences that, made me frustrated, made me angry, made me upset, and for no reason, now it's almost like it's less loud up here. And there's something really calming about it.
Welcome to a new episode. We've got our amazing guest, Michael Saad, with us, who is a communications professor at Okanagan College in Kelowna, British Columbia, beautiful Canada. Michael, thank you so much for joining me on our show today. We recorded once before, and I say recorded lightly because we didn't actually press record. We shot an entire episode without actually recording things. But thank you again for taking time out of your day to join me for another round of conversation here.
Thank you for having me, Tyler. I said last time, right at the end, I had such a fun time. Let's run it back, and looking forward to it.
And we said run it back, and I'm hoping to bring a totally different experience to the show for you, another side of it that you'll get to see. And before we kick off, what are the most important things that the audience needs to know about you to understand the rest of our story here today?
Well, I'm a communications professor, as you said. I very much believe in education. I very much believe in the power of communication and what it can do for you personally, professionally, in life and your relationships. But the biggest thing is, as much as I am in a really great place in career and expertise and whatnot, I wasn't always this way. And it took It took a journey, and it still is a journey, which I think is a lifelong journey. So that's the biggest thing I want people to know, is that we all start somewhere, and where that leads to, that's a lifelong quest.
Absolutely lifelong quest. And where we start is so important, and our why to why we start is also so important. And that's going to bring us to our first segment here on grounded moments. Alchemist, just one quick thing here before we get into our first segment. It would mean everything to me if you head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Growing the channel enables me to bring on incredible guests like Michael and continue delivering the best show I can for you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
3, 2, 1.
Rooted in wisdom, driven by purpose, Grounded Moments is all about our values. And there is no better way to see what you truly stand for than to play a game. Michael, you already know that we play a game with every elemental segment because we did this once before, and we're going to do it again with a whole new grouping of scenarios here. And our first one, as a reminder, is principle or preference. So I'm going to share something that is either a core value to you, and you can respond by saying principle, or it doesn't matter who does it or not, it's a preference. You can respond by saying preference. Are you ready to play?
Let's do it. I love games.
Here we go. We're going to go rapid fire. No time to justify. Never cancel a meeting.
Preference.
Call people out in the moment.
Preference.
Everyone gets a voice.
Principle.
Your mental health comes first.
Principle.
You always say yes to growth.
Principle.
Turn off your phone at dinner.
Oh, big principle.
Take the L privately.
Principle.
Stay loyal to your team.
Principle.
Live by your calendar.
Preference.
Always reply to criticism. Michael, what are the top 3 things you look for in a team member?
I look for a growth mindset. So are they willing to grow with you and learn and be open to learn?
How do you know if they have that?
You find out pretty quick. It's usually on the job. In my experience, anybody can say anything, right, to get the job, get into the position. But, when you're in a team and everybody needs to contribute and everybody needs to pull their weight, and sometimes you have to adapt and learn and grow, either you do or you have resistance to it. And I know that I've had resistance to it. And I've also been in a position where I have learned and grown and thrived. But you figure that out pretty quick. And I say it's usually just from experience and experiencing the individual in the moment. So
growth mindset, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the first one. The second one is collaboration. Is somebody willing to work with you and collaborate with you and share ideas, but also take ideas? And that literally goes for anybody. I don't care what position you are in. If you are tippy top dog, you still got to be able to collaborate and take ideas and consider ideas and know that, just because you're up here doesn't mean you have the best ideas every single time. So collaboration is huge. Yeah.
What's the difference between collaboration and compliance?
Compliance is basically go along to get along. Collaboration is, hey, I have some great ideas. Maybe I don't necessarily agree with these ideas. I might have something that can help it, can add to it. Collaboration can have resistance. Compliance usually doesn't.
I like that.
Yeah. And then the last one, this is a great one. The last one in a great team member is, do I want to hang out with this person? Plain and simple, right? You're in a team, you're going to be working with these people a lot, and your personalities have to gel. And at the end of the day, when all is said and done, do I just want to hang out with you? Because you're going to be hanging out a lot, and ideally, you want to enjoy who you're hanging out with.
Now, what about a world where the people you're hiring aren't the people you spend a lot of time with? Does that still apply?
Do you have really a choice? I mean, the people you're hiring, you tend to spend a lot of time with. But if you're not, that's a great question. If you're not, I think a shift in ever so slightly in that is just, do they have a good attitude? Like, what is that attitude? Are they conversational? Are they friendly? Do they want to have a laugh? You can find that out very quickly with an individual. Do they feel like they could have fun, or is it all business? Because at the end of the day, we need people with some personality. Because again, if I'm not working with them, somebody else is, and they need to be able to work together as people.
Totally agree with you there. And in hearing what you're sharing, maybe a value for you in relationships, on top of that idea of communication and that transparency, that stands out to me a lot in things that you bring to the table and you look for in the table. Before our first recording, I asked you to share a quote before coming on the show, and we had this amazing conversation around rising tides raise all ships. And I love the story that you gave behind it. I'm hoping on a recorded session here, you can tell it one more time.
Absolutely. This is a quote that was born out of my group of friends, the boys, the fellas. And basically the idea is that when one of us wins, we all win. And so whether or not it's with a job, a relationship, personal growth, we share all of these things. And we share these things because, again, if somebody has moved forward, then we got to celebrate that. And it allows us to move forward with them. It allows us to walk up the mountain with that person. If someone's got a big promotion at work, that's worth celebrating, because that's going to elevate them to, who knows, maybe a new living situation where they can have us over, and a bigger space, a new relationship. We get to meet somebody that this person just loves and enjoys and wants to be around, and makes them a happier person, and we all benefit from that. And if nothing else too, it's a motivator for us to say, wow, that was such a big win. I love that so much. I want that for myself. And so then it drives us to be better, and it drives us to raise the tides a little bit more. So it's something that we really, really, really prioritize with one another, is that celebrate those wins and know that when one person wins, we all win. And I think it's great because it's also not a competition, right? We don't feel like we have to keep up with one another. Some person goes and gets this amazing job, or has an amazing relationship, or gets engaged, or whatever. And it's the notion of, that's a win for them, and I'm going to go and seek out something that works for me, knowing full well that I'm going to be celebrated for it in the exact same way.
Rising tides raise all ships. I think you did a better job the second time of breaking that down for me than the first time. But that's what they say, right? Nothing goes as planned the first time you do it, and it's always better the second time around. And thankfully we pressed record, but if there was a third time, we'd probably get the even better version of the story.
We'd knock it out of the park. I mean,
absolutely.
It would be Oscar worthy.
It would be too good to put on a show, so we won't bother. But it's a powerful message, and it's one that ties back easily to these top three things you look for in a team. We hear back the stories of collaboration. We hear back the stories of, you want to hang out with these people. So the fact that this quote came from here, that value of relationships that we talked about not too long ago here, it's all apparent in what you stand for, and the idea of building people up. We like to talk about that idea of collective efficacy, and the idea of collective efficacy amongst people, and it goes hand in hand with your quote of rising tides raise all ships, because what it is people believing in the system and the process of what you're doing together. It's that idea of collaborating and not being compliant with it, right? One of the quotes that I really like is, well, the people at the bottom are busy fighting, the people at the top are too busy collaborating, right? And it's the idea of rising and bringing each other up. So I have to ask though, Michael, what's a hill that you die on, or you're willing to die on frequently, as we just talked about some of these values?
Just in terms of a general belief or an experience, or?
Yeah, general belief would be, let's go with belief.
A hill that I am willing to die on is to show up as authentically as possible to wherever you are. And I believe that so deeply, because everything I've talked about with relationships and collaboration and supporting one another. If you're not showing up as yourself, then you are not creating connection with anybody. And that is the number one trust builder. It's the number one builder of any relationship is authenticity, is vulnerability, is knowing that you do not have to be perfect. I ride or die with that that philosophy is that perfection is the pursuit of failure with the noblest of intentions. We cannot reach perfection. But we can certainly aspire to get as close to it as possible. But the more we chase the perfection, the more we are fake, the more we are not ourselves, the more we adopt identities, the more we try to put on a mask. And that alienates people more than it connects people. And so I am very much a believer of show up as you are, show people the vulnerabilities, show people the hesitations, the worries, the weakness, because somebody's going to look at you and go, I have those exact things too. Wow, we're both human and we have a connection now. So that's what I believe.
And I think you know what's coming next.
I think I do.
This is the elevator pitch where we're going to take this message and condense that into a little 20-second piece here. We were talking beyond the show around when we put things out, what works, and you raised the idea of let's try to get it around 20 seconds. So let's see if we can get this around 20 seconds.
Okay, here we go. Show up as yourself. Be your most authentic self. The more you try to be someone else, the more you are not being the person you know how to be best. Don't chase perfection. Perfection is a myth. You will never get there. Tell people that you're worried. Tell people that you're scared. Tell people you're excited. Tell people that you are blank, because those are the things that people will connect with. Those are the things that people will latch on. And at the end of the day, people will not know your expertise. They will not know your image, your reputation. All they will know is you. And that is the biggest thing that people will remember. So be authentic, because that's what people are going to truly see.
Listeners, alchemists, if you appreciate the message that Michael's just giving, what I want you to do is take a minute during this episode and head over to one of his social medias, which is linked in the description of this show. Give him a follow, give him a like, let him know, hey, I heard that pitch. It was awesome. I stand by it. I want to be around you. I want to see that content that you put out there as well. It would mean a lot to show support that way as well. And maybe a little bit more than 20 seconds there, but that's okay. That works for me. That's still a very solid elevator pitch that we can work with. And in doing all of this and hearing these values, this relationships, I want to bring it back to that rising tides raise all ships. And there are times where you need to be risen, where people need to help you rise. And that's the adversity we face. And to kick off talking about adversity, we're going to go into our next segment here, the air element on headwinds and tailwinds. In headwinds and tailwinds, we get down to the mistakes we've made and what was in the aftermath to learn. To get into the comfort zone of mistakes, we are going to play another game, Michael. And this game is Adversity Mad Libs. So I'm going to ask you to fill in some blanks for me. They can be honest, truth, totally made up, unhinged. We didn't do this one last time. Are you ready to give it a go?
All right, let's do it.
All right. All you have to do is repeat the sentence, but fill in the blanks for me.
Okay.
The biggest mistake I ever made was blank, but it taught me blank.
Biggest mistake I ever made was thinking that I knew everything. And it taught me to be humble. And it taught me to listen better.
I once felt completely unqualified to blank, yet I still blank.
I once felt unqualified for nearly every single job that I've ever had. And what was the last part?
Yet you still blank.
Yet I still got hired for those jobs, which taught me that I indeed had the skills.
My most awkward professional moment involved blank and blank.
My most awkward professional moment is the 2 times that I was sitting in my office and forgot that I had class, only to receive emails from my students about 12 minutes after saying, "Where are you?" And let me tell you, my sprinting skills certainly paid off that day.
That's awesome. Back then, I thought blank was the end. Now I see it was blank.
Back when I finished my master's degree, I thought it was the end of my education, only to realize it was just the beginning, because I was out of school and into.
Thanks for sharing, Michael. Thanks for playing the game. There's a new one
Yeah.
for us.
That was fun.
What? Yeah, I like it better than the Make It Worse game. I feel like we get some substance from our guest on this one, and I really enjoy the story behind it, which we get to maybe talk about a little bit here. What is something you had to unlearn?
I had to unlearn imposter syndrome.
What is imposter syndrome?
Pardon me?
What is imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome here's another elevator pitch. Imposter syndrome in its most basic terms is the feeling that you are in a position that you do not deserve. So if you get hired into a position and you feel overwhelmed, or you feel as though you don't have your footing in it, you feel like you've somehow fooled somebody into hiring you into that position. And I certainly felt that way when I got hired into my current position as a communications professor. What happened was I was looking all around me and seeing these very accomplished educators. And I thought to myself, how did I fool everybody into them thinking that I should be teaching alongside these individuals? And I didn't think I was as smart. I didn't think that I was as capable. And truthfully, the only way that I got over it is I went to therapy for it. I had to speak to a professional about this idea of imposter syndrome. And what I learned was, yes, there are many people that are so much better at things than I am in my profession. Having said that, I am better at certain things than so many other people. And we can't compare ourselves in our skill level, because skill levels aren't like this. Skill levels are just a giant bar graph of varying degrees. And the other thing that I had to learn was the individuals hiring me and the individuals recognizing my capabilities. I'm not fooling anybody. These are highly intelligent people who, for a living, recognize skill and hire people for their skill. So I wasn't coming in as, Loki from Thor and going, haha, I fooled everybody. No, I showed my skill, I showed my capabilities, and as a result, that I was hired for that. And that was something that I had to learn. And I also, again, had to learn that skill is can be a vague term, because it can come from so many different areas, and what makes you a capable educator is so different than what makes someone else a capable educator. And so imposter syndrome has really no place once you learn that.
One of the things, and we talked about this in our first trial and error of the show, but one of the things I had to unlearn was the quote, "Fake it till you make it." We shared a moment of passion over hating that quote together.
That term. I hate it so much.
It comes from that, and fake it till you make it and imposter syndrome go hand in hand, right? Because you're creating a mindset. As soon as you're told fake it till you make it, somebody is actually telling you you don't deserve where you are, and you need to fake being where you are until you start to feel comfortable or competent, or you've been there longer than everyone else around you to then say you're the one that leads it. So the reason that I don't like that term is because when you say it to somebody, it's exactly what you're alluding to on imposter syndrome here. You're creating a mindset that you don't belong where you are, and you need to pretend like you do. And what I would prefer people say instead is, it's okay to not know everything right away. And you're going to figure it out along the way. It's our job to help you. But you need to know that if you're not sure of something, there's a team around you to collaborate with, to build those relationships with, to talk to transparently about, bring it back to our very first conversation. Because if you're not having those conversations when your boss comes in to see what you're doing and you're trying your best to fake it and you didn't have conversations with people because you needed to fake it, it's going to show.
Yeah.
And they're going to notice that you're not where you should be. And they're going to notice that you didn't play a part of the team. That's a problem. So
It is.
You know, I appreciate the connection to imposter syndrome with one of my least favorite quotes of fake it till you make it. Now, with that, what's one of the biggest mistakes you've ever made?
One of the biggest mistakes I ever made.
Aside from showing up 12 minutes late to a class.
I would say that one of the biggest mistakes that I ever made is early in my career. I felt, and it goes back to what I discussed, is I felt the need to be perfect. I felt the need to be the, stereotypical educator that had all the answers, that could walk into a classroom and never made a mistake. And it was indeed such a mistake, because it put up a wall and it didn't allow me to make any connection with my students. And what I learned down the road was that once you bring down that wall and you show that you're not perfect, you emphasize that you're not perfect, students suddenly see you as a human being, and you create an incredible connection. One of the examples that I gave in the last recording was when I first would come into class. I teach some professional writing courses, and I would write a word on the board, and sometimes I wouldn't know how to spell it. And so for any letter or area that I wasn't quite sure about how to spell, I'd make it more scratchy and scribbly so that it was kind of obscure, but it looked like I knew the word. And fake it till you make it. And then once I took that wall down and I didn't act perfect, I would be that person go, all right, we're going to spell, how do you spell this word? And everybody would look at me and go, aren't you an English professor? I went, no, communications professor. I don't know how to spell this. You got to tell me. And they would laugh and they would tell me how to spell it, or, they would look it up or something like that. But the point I'm making is that that's a real human moment. And they can look at you and still know that you know your stuff and you know your subject matter, but they can also now have an added layer of going, here's a human who knows something, not just some figurehead with knowledge. And so I would say for anybody, don't make the mistake of having to go in and think you have to know everything. In fact, make it very clear that, here are the things that you don't know about. It will shock you at how quickly people will help you know what you don't know.
Do you let heavy emotions show in front of your students?
No. I'm very controlled in the emotions that I show, but if there's great joy, if there's great happiness, if there's great laughter, yeah, absolutely. The positive things I absolutely show. If there's negative things that are happening to me, that doesn't create any positivity or productivity for my students. And I don't try to bring in any negative energy into a classroom. And so if I'm experiencing any negative energy, I do try to check that at the door. If my students, however, are experiencing certain negative energy, let's explore that a bit. Let's get that out there. There's a reason why they are acting this way, and whether they feel comfortable expressing that in the classroom or after class, that's great. But me, I have to be more reserved.
Why?
Because the classroom isn't about me. The classroom is about the students. And so if I come in with personal things or any baggage, suddenly we're not creating a good experience for the students that are there. Now, if we go back to my point about showing up and being human and being authentic, yes, to a certain degree, as someone who is leading the classroom. And my priority is to be as authentic with the most positive things possible, because at the end of the day, I want students leading that classroom feeling great and feeling good and wanting to come back. I don't want to bring the mood down. But if a student is feeling a certain way, we have a great opportunity to have them leaving great and have them leaving positive. But it's also that priority of, yeah, show up authentically, but also know classroom isn't about you, it's about your students. So what are we doing to be as authentic and real as possible for the sake of our students?
I appreciate that. And similar to what we do in the world of K to 12 public education, I encourage teachers, if you're having a bad day or something's happened, it's okay to tell students, I might not be myself, but I'm going to bring my best for you today. But we don't get into it, right? We don't fully unpack that in a classroom, because it's not the student's job to unpack that with you.
Yeah.
And but on the flip side, just as you said, it is your job to unpack that with students if they invite it in their own lives, to bring it a part of the classroom.
Absolutely.
Because you're there for them.
Yep.
So I appreciate the connection there, Michael. And with that, that's the ebbs and flows of working with people. There's different life experiences that everyone brings to the table, and with that can come a lot of change. And that's going to bring us to our water element and our next segment on ripples of change. Small shifts, big waves. In ripples of change, we discover how to make a lasting impact. Now, Michael, we're going to play another game here, and this is the quick tips version. I know we've played it once before. I've come up with some new things to give tips on.
All right.
Not necessarily communication themed, but in a way they can be slightly similar, slightly different. Ready to give it your best go?
Let's do it.
What's one decision-making habit that changed your life?
Sleep on it.
What's the fastest way to reset a bad day?
Also sleep on it. A nap. I always say a nap or a laugh can solve almost any problem.
Turn it off and on again, right? That's all you have to do. Yeah. What should every leader teach their team by example?
Be open to criticism.
You also could have said, make sure you sleep on things. That would have worked.
Have a good sleep.
Yeah. What's one thing you no longer stress about?
Success.
Michael, how has your leadership changed to what it is now from your first year of doing what you do, whether it's, you want to say, your first year in communications at UBC, or whether it's your first year in what you would just consider general leadership?
I really put my faith in other people to do the job. I was very much a bit of a control freak on, like, this has to be done this way. And now with a lot of students who are really keen students and really keen kids, I put a lot of faith in them and say, I know you can get this done. Go get this done. And you know what? They do.
I really appreciate that. And how is that different from your first year?
I didn't have a sense of students. And I didn't have a sense, and I think too, because I was closer in age to the students. So this was, 13 some years ago. I was closer in age to the students. And I think with wisdom, maturity, experience, and being able to recognize that, they're like, these kids are sharp and they're motivated and they're always there, right? And so I think with time, as I say, time, experience, and wisdom, you get to see the repetition each year that this group of super keen students show up. They do some remarkable things, and you want to entrust them with bigger responsibilities and bigger tasks. And you also realize that, in the time when you were young, you were given these things too, and you had the opportunity to step up. And the further you get away from it, the more you realize, oh, that really did set me up for success, and now you want to set them up for success.
How do you help someone action their own change?
I put them in a situation that they don't believe they can do, because they're not going to put themselves in that situation. And you entrust them, and they, in many ways, think it's a big deal. And in many ways, it is a big deal. But you put them in that situation and you say, listen, I know you can do this. You need to know that you can do this. And I've yet to see a situation where a student or an individual I'm working with has dropped the ball on it when they're put in a situation where they believe that they could fail. If I believe they can do it and I know they can do it, it goes back to that imposter syndrome, right? Someone hired me because they saw expertise in me. Well, I saw expertise and I saw talent in a student. They just didn't see it in themselves. So let's extract that from them. And then at the end of it, when they are a huge success, we've just leveled them up.
You fear factor them. Did you ever watch that show, Fear Factor?
Yeah, a very different Joe Rogan.
That's right.
Yeah.
You just take what they're most terrified of and you say, you're going to do it. But
You're going to do it.
You're going to do it in a space where if it's an absolute fail, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Right? Nobody cares. And it's not going to impact you because it's in an educational setting where, it's not getting put out to the world. You're not getting evaluated on it. You just get a chance to try. Right?
But the other thing too, and I'll just give a little caveat here. We've put students in situations like real world situations with real clients and competitions and real things with real stakes. I also will not put a student in a situation that I know that they can't do. And so, yeah, I'm going to put them in a situation where they could fail, but only in their own minds. I know they can do it and I know they'll get it done.
That's right. And even then, if they failed, it's one client, right? I was just listening to a Mr. Beast interview, and he talked about it was on Diary of a CEO that he was on, and he talked about how when he brings somebody new onto the team and they make a decision that costs them money, he goes back to one of his closest people in his hands. It has cost him tens of millions of dollars. But they keep him around because he learns from every single time he costs them on what went wrong, right? And It doesn't matter what you cost. It matters how you bounce back after that cost, right? And that's the idea of you don't need to fake it till you make it. You're going to make mistakes. It's how you respond to the mistakes that you make is what's going to help you grow, develop, and be even better than when you started.
There's no winning or losing. There's winning or learning. And you have learned, I have learned, and we are better people because of it.
That's absolutely right. Now, what steps do you take personally when you have to change something?
That's a great question. Now, as the person I am now, I'm very open to critique and things that I have to work on. I have, as I said, with Rising Tides Raise All Ships, I have an amazing group of friends who are very honest with me, and they obviously see something in me that has to be altered. I have some amazing work colleagues that have identified things in me that has to be altered. I really value expertise, and I really value when very important people see something in me that needs to change. And so for me, I always look at it as, okay, they see something that clearly I don't see. And whether or not I agree with it or disagree with it, I go back, I sleep on it, but I reflect on it. Where is it coming from? Why is it being projected this way? How do I need to change? In what way do I need to show this differently? And I actually really go through a process of never discounting it, but whether or not I agree with it or not, I analyze where it's coming from, why it's coming from that perspective. And if I have the capacity to change, how can I do that? And if I'm unsure if I have that capacity, I ask, how can I do this better? What steps can I take to do this better? Someone obviously pointed something out because they want you to change. So help me do that. Give me more guidance. I have a huge growth mindset, and I want to be better. So please tell me.
And not everything needs to be changed, right? Just because somebody points something out does not mean you need to hit a reset button on it. You need to, like we said, hopefully you have those relationships that you can have a conversation around it, right? And you can say, why do you see it that way? What could it look like for you? Now, if we've gone down that path and we say, okay, yeah, we do need to make a change, how do you communicate what change you're doing, or do you need to communicate it?
I'm very vocal about the steps that I'm taking. I don't know necessarily the perspective that that's coming from, whether it's like me validating the person, like, yes, I am doing this, or whether it's me expressing, the steps that I'm taking for feedback, right? Here's the steps that I'm taking to change. Can you add anything to this? Can you build anything on this? If I feel I've reached the end of the steps, is there a whole other staircase that you see that I haven't climbed yet? So I am very vocal about that because whatever journey that I have taken to enact change, someone else may have taken that journey and have experienced something completely different and can help guide me a little bit better. So I am very vocal when there's change to be made.
I'm going to be very vocal here, Michael, and say we're going to change to our next segment where we take the change that we're talking about and we start to action it in the decisions we make. And with that, we're going to get into spark or burn. Hey, alchemists, if you're still listening to the show, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sticking around. Right before we get into our final elemental segment here, our fire segment, take a minute and leave a review on Apple if you're enjoying the show. Give us a 5-star rating on Spotify. When you give those ratings, it improves the reach of the show, and I get to achieve my goal of impact. I want more people to listen. I want more people to be engaged because I want to impact the lives of others for the better. So I'd really appreciate it if you left that review or rating. In Spark or Burn, we either tackle the big decisions that sparked success or burn some lessons into our memory. And to kick off this segment, Michael, our last game, these are decisions, big decisions that you have to live with. This is final answer. It's a would you rather with no explanations. Are you ready to go?
Okay, let's do it.
Would you rather take a risky opportunity or wait for the perfect one?
Wait for the perfect one.
Would you rather be respected or liked?
Respected.
Would you rather be known for kindness or consistency?
Kindness.
Would you rather delegate something important or do it late yourself?
Do it late myself.
Would you rather own a bad decision or try to explain it away?
Own a bad decision.
Would you rather lose momentum or lose control?
Oh, momentum.
Would you rather rebuild from scratch or fix what's broken?
Fix what's broken.
Would you rather work with high talent or high trust?
High trust.
Would you rather get 1% better every day or 100% right once a year?
1% better.
Would you rather take the credit or give it away?
Give it away.
And there we go with our final answers. Would you rather? I want to jump back to one of the ones that we talked about, which is, would you rather have high talent or high trust? And the interesting about that is I do believe there's a study out there on the Navy SEALs and how they recruit. And they recruit people that they can trust over the skill because they can train the skill, but you can't train the trust. And so I love that you picked the trust on that one. It is super, super important. And with that, I want to ask, what is the hardest decision you've ever had to make in your role, either now or just as a leader in general?
The hardest decision that I ever had to make was 10 years ago this August, so next month, and deciding to move from Northern Ontario, where I'm from, born and raised, to take this position. It was a 1-year contract in British Columbia. I'd never been here in my life. Outside of school, I had never lived outside of my hometown in North Bay. Shout out North Bay. And the hardest decision was, am I going to leave the only life I knew, my friends, my family, my parents, my brother, like everything, and take this job because I wanted to be an educator, and I wanted to have a career. And it was absolutely terrifying, coming out here and having to establish myself and get started. And it was, it didn't hit me until I realized I can't drive home on weekends. You're just here. And the idea that life will never be the same, that was difficult to adjust to. But once I got into my job and once I developed some fantastic friends and a wonderful community, and knowing full well that my family was still there and I could still call them and I know how to find them, you realize that it was the right choice. And there was a quote, I can't remember who said it, but they say change and those hard decisions, change is often terrifying. And but it usually turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to you. And moving that into maybe a second quote, I think this one Dumbledore said, so there's my golden snitch there too, is the hardest decisions and the right decisions are usually the same thing. And so making the most difficult decision to literally uproot my life for something that could possibly be better, turned out to indeed be the right decision. And 10 years later, I have a very wonderful life, and I'm fortunate enough to now be on a podcast with a wonderful colleague.
Would you move again?
If the opportunity presented itself, I always say this, 10 years ago, if you told me that I was moving here out to BC, I would have said you were crazy. Anything's possible, right? You never know what life can hold. You never know.
I like that you're not shutting the door on it fully. Now, earlier, we talked a lot about being vulnerable and that relationships and the collaborative mindset and how you approach those conversations. How do you separate emotion from logic?
Wow, that's a great question. I often say, take yourself out of the situation. So when we place ourselves in a situation, we place our thoughts, our feelings, our concerns, and our emotions. And so that often can drive some decisions. In many cases, it can drive irrational decisions because in many cases, emotion is irrational decisions. So what I often say is, if ever there's a situation that you have to make a high level decision on something, and maybe it's very emotionally driven, personally or professionally, take yourself out of it. Because once you take yourself out of it, you look at it for what it is rather than what you want it to be. So, you look at, this is a long time ago, I was having a conversation with a friend who literally had just broken up with his girlfriend at the time. And he says, I don't know if I've made the right choice. I don't know if I made the right choice. And I said, well, what did you like about her? He's like, oh, we connected. And we connected so much. And I went, okay, I want you to take yourself out of this for a second. Did you communicate? No. Did you compromise? Sometimes. Did you support each other? Maybe. And I went, well, then logically, was it a great relationship? He goes, yeah, probably not. And so my best advice to managing emotions and logic and separating the two is literally remove yourself and see it for what it is rather than what you want it to be.
So follow up to that. Removing yourself. How do you still make sure your values show up in your decision?
Well, looking at logic, I think logic is often built on your values to a certain degree. Here's what something is based on how appropriate it is for the situation, based on if it's a societal context, a cultural context, a business context, a relationship context. Your values will always inject themselves into your logic. Your logic may not be my logic, and they're always built on our conditioning to our values, I think. And there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with that because logic is very black and white if you look at it from a philosophy perspective. But I truly believe that how we logically build the world starts with the foundation of where our values lie. So I think they're interconnected. And I don't think that that's emotionally driven.
Michael, how can our listeners get a hold of you, get in touch with you if they want to learn more or hear what you're all about?
Yeah, I am on Instagram at It's Mike Saad with 2 A's, SAAD, just like the emotion. You can find me there, shoot me a DM, ask me any questions you'd like. I'm always happy to have a conversation.
Now, Michael, one of the things that we are shifting away from here is I used to do listener questions where people could write in a question and we would talk about them on the show and give our best answer. What I've shifted to is the person that I've previously interviewed is going to provide a question for my next guest, not knowing who they are and what they're bringing to the table to answer. And so between the time of we're going to call it the best recording of ever that's ever been done to the recording that's happened right now, I did have an interview in between, and they kicked off the show for me. This came from a school principal in Ontario, Michelle Sigmund. And the question that she's left behind is, what is unique to you?
Unique to me, like as a person or in general?
That's the question she left behind.
That's a great question. What is unique to me? I love seeing the world in an absurd way. And I'll give a little bit of context to that. I've always enjoyed the grandiose. I've always enjoyed, the theatrics, the dramatics, the gravitas of things. And I think when you look at the world in a big way and you look at the world in an obscure way, and as I say, in an absurd way, you get to see different things. So rather than going with the conventional advice, perspective, piece of entertainment, find the things that are different, find the things that are weird and absurd, because you're going to extract something very special from it. And so if I'm sitting and talking to students, some of the advice that I give them is, it's off the beaten path. It might be more direct. It might be something they haven't heard before. If I go into a classroom, I may do an exercise that is completely different, is completely new, is completely out there. And I think that it's so much fun. And I think that it provides people with such a different and unique experience because it's not the cookie cutter approach. It's not the cookie cutter method. So what is the unique thing? Find the absurd, right? Find the out there thing, because you're going to learn something so unique and so original, and you're going to see the world so different.
I love that answer. And different from listener questions, I'm not going to jump in and give my answer to the questions, but I enjoy hearing the response to it. And Michael, not knowing who I'm interviewing next, when that interview is happening, what we might talk about, what credentials they bring, what question do you want to leave the next guest?
If money or success was not an option, if money or success was not an issue, what would you do in life?
Really good question. Now, before we fully wrap up the show here, Michael, what is one last message, one last thought that you want to leave with the audience? What should they be taking away?
Show up as yourself. If you're concerned about things, be concerned. If you're excited about things, be excited. Just be as honest as possible, because people are going to love that about you. We are so concerned. We have that inner critic in our head that says, don't do this, act this way, do this, be this person, be yourself. And you will be amazed at the remarkable things that you can accomplish. And you will be amazed at the people that gravitate towards you when you just exist, rather than adopting a persona or a self, or limiting yourself based on what you think it should be versus what it is.
Michael, I, from the bottom of my heart, want to say thank you to you as well. I know we did a first trial that what a great conversation. And I'm so thankful you enjoyed it. But to turn around and say, hey, let's do this again and let's get it done again right away, because we just love the connection. I'm so appreciative of the wisdom you're willing to share and able to share. And I feel like from this conversation, we've gone a whole nother level from even the first one, that I wish I could just put the two together now and have this big 2-hour episode. But here we are. But seriously and sincerely, thank you so much for joining me again for this connection.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you for having me. As I said last time, this was so much fun, and I was so happy to do it again because I had a blast, and you do such a great job on here, and it was such a great conversation. So thank you as well.
Thanks for sticking around to the end of the show. If you have feedback, a suggestion, or just want to start a conversation, fire off an email to me, tyler@elementaleducator.com. I actually read them. And if this episode sparks something, leave a review on Apple or Spotify. It helps more leaders find the show. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, where I put out additional content. I'll see you next time, same same place.